So it's very effective in our practice to not just from time to time, but rather consistently reflect on the disadvantages of self-centeredness and what happens when we follow it. And especially to think about what we want in our life, what our aspirations are, and how the self-centered mind blocks us fulfilling our own aspirations. And it does this in so many different ways. It's uncountable how much, and in all the different ways, the self-centered thought just keeps us trapped. Yeah. We, we want good relationships, but we behave in the way opposite to creating them. We want to have respect at our workplace, and we behave in the way that's opposite to getting that respect. Yeah. So we just look in so many different ways in our lives what we want. I'm not talking about what our self-centered mind wants, but what we know in our hearts is good, and how the self-centered thought just gets in the way. Yeah, again and again and again. And it's so sneaky because it appears to be our friend. And it makes up all these stories about why it's our friend. Yeah. And we believe those stories. And then it just leads us into a pit. Yeah. So it's good to do some reflection on our life and make some examples in our life. Yeah, from how this has happened. Actually, this is a good topic for the discussion group this afternoon, to really reflect and make, some examples in your life of when you've had some kind of aspiration or wish and then followed the self-centered thought, and how that got in the way of your creating the kind of situation you wanted or accomplishing what you wanted. I think it might be quite good in your discussion to, share some real-life examples of how this works. Yeah, because that's how we're going to learn, is when we look at our life. And we'll learn from hearing other people's stories. And you don't need to be afraid of telling your story, because everybody else is telling theirs too. And we're all in the same boat. Yeah, so there's no need to pretend that my self-centered thought doesn't interfere with my life. You don't need to pretend that to anybody here. Okay? And I think we can learn from the examples in each other's lives, and we can help other people learn by sharing our own life stories. Yeah. So that's why in the new book, Don't Believe Everything You Think, it's filled with people's stories of how they use the 37 practices to work in their lives. And it's those stories, I think, that make the book something that's really useful to people, because then you have real life examples. Because unless we apply the Dharma to our life and come up with these real life examples, it remains kind of intellectual and heady, and self-centered thought we should get rid of. But we've never stopped and looked and identified our own self-centered thought. And we've never looked to see how it creates a mess. We just spout these words as if we're talking about other people's self-centered thought, And you should really do something about your self-centered thought. Yeah, well, it should be me, this one. Okay. So that kind of fits in, we're going through the sadhana. Yesterday we were talking about the power of regret, not guilt, not denial, not justification, not blaming, but the power of regret. Okay, and so let's go on to the next paragraph. So seeing Vajrasattva as a combination of the wisdom and compassion of all the Buddhas, and as your own wisdom and compassion in its fully developed form. Okay, so seeing Vajrasattva as the wisdom and compassion of all the Buddhas is causal refuge, taking refuge in the beings who already are Buddhas and Sangha and the Dharma in their mind. And then seeing Vajrasattva also as your own wisdom and compassion when they've been fully developed and actualized. That is the resultant refuge, knowing that you too can become a Buddha, and taking the future Buddha and the future Dharma realizations, into the present, and thinking, oh, I take refuge in those, because that, when I really have the Dharma realizations, that's my real refuge. That's what's really going to protect me from samsara. Okay, so seeing it that way, then we make this request. O Bhagawan Vajrasattva, please clear away all negative karma and obscurations of myself and all living beings, and purify all degenerated and broken commitments. Okay, so we're, like I was explaining before, we're requesting Vajrasattva to do this, but psychologically what we're doing is putting out our own aspiration that I want to purify my own and everybody else's negativities and degenerated and broken vows and commitments. Okay, and asking Vajrasattva, who we're seeing, as the causal refuge, as the resultant refuge, to please inspire and help us to do that. Okay, so all the negative karma. Let's look at this. Please clear away all the negative karma. So the negative karma is talking about the 10 non-virtues specifically. Okay, so killing, stealing, unwise and unkind sexual behavior, those are physical non-virtues. Lying, creating disharmony with our speech, harsh words and idle talk are the verbal non-virtues. And then coveting, maliciousness and wrong views are the mental non-virtues. And it's said that all the non-virtuous actions can actually be subsumed within those 10. Now, at the beginning, when we hear the 10, it sounds kind of superficial. Yeah, but when we really start looking at our lives, it's not so easy to abandon these 10. Like abandoning creating disharmony with our speech. How often do we talk badly about somebody behind their back, so that in order to get somebody else to agree with our perception of that person? Yeah. How much do we dump our hostility on other people? Yeah, and ridicule them or speak to them in a condescending way, or just plain old disrespectful way. It's not so easy, especially with these verbal ones, let alone the mental ones, the physical ones, to really abandon these things. So taking some time and really, when you do the Vajrasattva retreat, doing a life review of the things that you've done, and really looking at these 10 and seeing the different habit patterns that we've gotten ourselves into. Now, how, when somebody gives us some feedback, we want to explain ourselves and justify what we've done. It's so hard to sit there and say, yes. It's but. Yeah. So, to really take a look at these. And it's not that we just do it on Vajrasattva retreat and then we've done that and they're all purified and we don't look at that the rest of our lives. Because even like when you do the The 35 Buddhas, how in those you're and the Uhula prayer, the one that you say after the 35 Buddhas, when you look, there's a lot of very specific negativities that are delineated there. If you look closely, you'll see that they all fall within these 10. Okay? And, all of our precepts fall within these 10 in some way or another. When we take the 5 precepts, 4 of the precepts correspond with 4 of these 10. So not killing, not lying, not using sexuality unwisely or unkindly, and not stealing, okay? So those 4 are in common with the 10 and with the 5 precepts. The additional 5th precept is not taking intoxicants. That's not specifically listed within the 10. Okay? The reason that one is added on is because in general, when we take intoxicants, we make it very easy for ourselves to do the other ones because we don't have any control of our mind. If we look at our mind on a regular day-to-day basis, like we were talking day before yesterday, how much control do we have over our thoughts and our mind? Not a whole lot. If we take intoxicants, we have even less. Yeah, and with the inmates that I work with, I would say 99.99% of them were intoxicated at the time that they committed their crime. Yeah. That doesn't excuse them for their crime, but it makes you wonder, if they weren't intoxicated, would they have exercised more restraint? Would they have not just followed whatever urge came in their mind and then wound up in prison for however many years afterwards? Yeah. So intoxicants is really something quite serious, I think, especially now in society, in American society. I was horrified to hear that more Americans die each year from misuse of prescription drugs than from illegal drugs. That means the drugs you buy from a with a prescription, doctor's prescription at a pharmacy, misusing those kills more people than heroin and meth and crack, and that's I'm speechless regarding that, yeah? And how that happens. Yeah, and how it's especially difficult with the prescription drugs, because people often don't see it as misuse. They see it as, well, I got the doctor's prescription and I'm just taking some more painkillers because, well, yeah, there's the physical pain, but actually the painkillers make me feel good mentally too. Yeah. Or people, of course, getting prescriptions and then selling them to other people who know they're abusing the drugs but don't really care. Yeah. One time I led a retreat at Cloud Mountain, and the person who drove me back after that, she was telling me about her addiction to prescription drugs and everything she did to get the prescriptions. You know, how she faked so many things going into emergency rooms to get prescriptions, and, you know, and how she almost wound up as a prostitute to get the drugs that she wanted, you know, because she ran out of ways to get them through prescriptions. And she met somebody, you know, some pimp who, okay, I'll give you what you want, but here, do this. And fortunately, she got herself out of that situation. But, you know, I'm sure when people start down that path, they never think, oh, I'm going to wind up a prostitute, or I'm going to wind up dead in the bathroom, or I'm going to kill somebody in a car. You know? So it's this whole thing of not thinking about the effects of our actions on ourselves or on other people. Yeah? One woman many years ago was taking me somewhere. I hear many interesting stories in cars. And she was telling me about her husband, who had a whole collection of booze bottles. It was kind of his prize, because all around the room there was a shelf, and he put, you know, all the different booze bottles, you know, fine wines and, you know, vodka and all his booze bottles, you know, one of each, kind of each type, to really, like, this is my pride of, you know. So one day they got a phone call, and their son had been in a car accident. I can't remember exactly about the people in the other car. I think those people may have been killed. But their son was in a coma due to the car accident, which was his fault because he was driving under the influence. So there's their son that they love very much in a coma for a really long time, and they had to make the decision to pull the plug on him, which I think must have been excruciating for parents to do for a child. And when the father got home after that, he just went to the booze bottle, knocked them all down, because he saw that his drinking influenced his son and made his son drink, and led to the accident, and led to that painful decision to pull the plug. So, you know, it's sad. It's really sad. I mean, I can't imagine what those parents felt having to do that. So, you know, to really think of the long-term effects of our actions on other people, and how they influence is important. Okay, so please clear away all negative karma. So that's what we're talking about. And the obscurations of myself and other living beings. So the obscurations are the afflictions, you know, ignorance, anger, attachment, all the other afflictions that we have. And all the subtle obscurations, the stains in the mind left over from those afflictions of myself and others. So not just purify me, Vajrasattva, because you care about me more than any other sentient being, because I'm special. It's, you know, pure, you know, really making that request on behalf of all living beings. And requesting purify all degenerated and broken commitments. It should say vows and commitments, or precepts and commitments here. Degenerated and broken precepts and commitments. So those refer to our 5 precepts or our monastic vows, monastic precepts. They refer to the Bodhisattva precepts. They refer to the tantric precepts, and then the commitments we make when we take tantric initiation. The commitments of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, as well as the commitments to do certain practices or recite certain mantras on a daily basis. So realizing that we don't keep our precepts and commitments very well, and really wanting to purify them. So of course, keeping our precepts as well is much better than breaking them and having to purify them. It's like the difference between not breaking your leg and breaking your leg and then having it fixed up afterwards. Better not to break it. Yeah. So we have to think about this thing of taking precepts and commitments. No? and really think about what they are, have some reasonable confidence that we can keep them well, so it's not just some kind of emotional thing, but thinking, can I keep them well? That doesn't mean we have to keep them perfectly. If we could keep them perfectly, we wouldn't need to take them. So these are trainings, these precepts are trainings. But we should have respect for the precepts and an aspiration to keep them well, and not just this flippant idea of, well, I'll take them and then I'll see how I feel after I take them, if I feel like keeping them or not. Yeah, because you find lots of people who take the precepts and then immediately they start negotiating. I said I'm not going to take intoxicants, but I'm at a party and everybody else is, and it's a family dinner, and they're going to think I'm puritanical if I don't drink. So for their benefit, so they don't get a bad impression of Buddhism, I think I should have some wine with them. Yeah. Or I took a precept, not to listen to music or sing or dance, but today or watch entertainment. But today, I think I just feel the need to relax. I need to relax. So I'll listen to some music to relax. I'll watch something on the internet. It'll help me relax. Yeah. So we need to really have respect for the precepts we take, and take them seriously with a sincere aspiration to keep them. And when, of course, thoughts will always come in our mind that say, I don't feel like doing that. I feel like doing something else right now. That always happens, doesn't it? But instead of just, well, I feel like doing that, so I'll do it. Just, well, wait a minute, I took a precept not to do that. Why did I take that precept? Yeah, I took that precept because I did some reflection beforehand, and I realized that when I do that action, I wind up in a worse place in this life and in future lives than when I abstain from doing that action. So I took that precept with some awareness that I need to restrain my attachment or my anger or my ignorance. That's why I took it. So here's this thought saying, forget that. You really should do this, Otherwise, you're just being too tight on yourself. God forbid. Yeah. I'm going to be a nervous wreck if I don't, if I don't listen to music right now, if I don't do this, I'm just going to be a nervous wreck forever, because this is just too stressful and I'm tying myself in knots. It's the way our mind thinks, isn't it? Yeah? So I've just got to do this. It's skillful for me to do this. This is skillful behavior. Okay, this is how the self-centered thought deceives us. This is perfect example of the work of the self-centered thought. Yeah, because it creates all this hyperbole around something that is nothing. Yeah. Am I really going to totally collapse from stress if I don't listen to music? Or if I don't, read this novel? Or if I don't watch this program on TV? Or if I don't have a sip of alcohol, or if I don't make eyes at that nice-looking guy across the room who happens to be married. Forget that you're married yourself. Am I really going to die of stress and trauma? Am I really being too strict with myself that it's just confining my creativity? You should hear the excuses that go around for why people can't do things. It's amazing. And it all started with, the dog ate my precept. Yeah, Donnie, we have this thing in America. When you're a little kid and you don't turn in your homework, why don't you have my homework? Well, I did it, but the dog ate it. And of course your teacher knows that that's not true. But we really try and convince, you don't understand, really my dog, he's a German Shepherd. And if I didn't let him eat my precept, he would have bitten my hand off. That's why I don't have my homework. So, So, this whole thing about learning to tell the truth to ourselves. If I'm not keeping a precept, I need to be truthful with myself about why I'm not doing it, instead of lying to myself. And sometimes in the process of being truthful, we have to be compassionate with ourselves. I was reading, what was it? Yes, it was one of the sutras, the question to Ugra. It was about a bodhisattva. And it was saying that, because bodhisattvas, their first far-reaching practice is generosity. But sometimes bodhisattvas run up against, or bodhisattva aspirants, I should say, run up against their self-centered thought, and they don't want to give, and they can't give. So what do you do at that moment where you see that your self-centered thought is so big that it won't let you give? Instead of rationalizing, denying, justifying, making up all these stories, the bodhisattva says to the person who asks them for something, I'm a beginning bodhisattva, and I would like to be able to give to you, but right now, my self-centered thought is too great, and I'm not able to do that. And I really aspire in the future to be able to overcome this impediment so that I can help you. That really struck me. When we're unable to do something, just to say directly that and say, but I aspire in the future to be able to. And I think when we do that, then we're being very truthful with ourselves, and we're really able to purify. It's when we make up all the stories and don't really acknowledge things that then the purification can't happen. Yeah? But I thought, wow, that's really something. Just say it like it is. Yeah? Or you're in a really difficult situation with somebody, and you're angry, and you would love it if you weren't so angry, but you're really ticked off. And to say to that person, I'm really sorry, I'm very angry right now, I'm very upset, I wish I weren't. But I am angry, I have aspirations to do something with my anger, but this is what I'm feeling right now, and I need a timeout. It's like if you say that to somebody in the middle of a quarrel, I think they're going to understand, because they can hear your sincerity and the truthfulness in your voice. Yeah? So to be able to own things. So here we're talking about precepts and tantra commitments, but I think also, what about regular commitments that we make? We make commitments all the time and promises all the time to other people, and we want our word to be worth something. When we say something, we want people to believe us. And we value our word, don't we? But having people respect our word depends on us creating the causes. And to have people respect our word and to have people trust us, we have to be able to follow through on what we say we're going to do. So Shantideva always asks us, please think well about something before you promise to do it. Yeah, don't rush into things, think well. But once you've promised, go through with it. So in, the Shantideva's text, the Guide to a Bodhisattva's Way of Life, which we read together on Christmas. That's our Christmas at the Abbey as we read this text out loud. And, he talks about when you've taken the Bodhisattva vow to lead all sentient beings to enlightenment, then how much negative karma it is to go back on that and say, oh, sorry folks, actually I'm not going to lead you to enlightenment, I just want to get out of samsara myself. Yeah, how negative that is, because we've made that promise to all sentient beings, and then we're going back on our word and leaving them in the lurch. Yeah, so he says, even though it's difficult to maintain the bodhicitta, and sometimes we may get angry or upset or discouraged, we're not to give up. We're not to listen to those kind of thoughts that say to us, this is just too hard, I can't do it. And this is the most extraordinary commitment we've ever made in our lives, those of us who have taken the Bodhisattva vow, when we commit to attain awakening to benefit everybody else and lead them also to awakening. And it's an astounding commitment to make. And to be aware, it's so virtuous and it's so noble and it's so wonderful. And you love that commitment so much, and you respect that commitment so much, that when your mind starts going, oh, but these sentient beings are so obnoxious, I just don't want to, it's impossible to lead them to enlightenment. Or enlightenment is just too high. I can't attain it, I can't love every sentient being. I just want to get out of samsara myself. That when these thoughts arise in your mind, because you have so much respect and love for bodhicitta, because you took the bodhicitta vow in the presence of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and in the presence of your spiritual mentor, then instead of listening to those thoughts, you say, okay, what are the antidotes to those kind of thoughts? Yeah, when I feel that this is just too hard and I can't do it, what's the antidote to that thought? What?
The disadvantages.
Disadvantages of self-centeredness? Okay.
Laziness and discouragement.
Yeah, what are the antidotes to laziness, the laziness of discouragement? Contemplating our precious human life, contemplating Buddha nature. So especially on this one where we say, but I can't attain enlightenment, it's too difficult. But the Buddha said that even flies and cockroaches and spiders can attain enlightenment. Maybe not in that body, but they can eventually. So if they can, then me with my precious human life, certainly I have a much better situation.
It's good to turn to your own, whatever you're cultivating, of refuge.
Yeah, really take refuge. And what I find very helpful is to think how much the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and my spiritual mentors have done for me, and they haven't given up on me. So how dare I give up on others? If I've been the recipient of other people's effort and kindness so much, I mean, you think about it, the Buddha's been trying to drag me to enlightenment from beginningless time. And I am resisting, kicking and screaming the whole way. And the Buddha hasn't gotten fed up and said, get rid of her. So if nobody's given up on me, why should I give up on somebody else? Okay, I find that very, very helpful to think about. Okay? So, really looking when we make commitments and promises, whether they're Dharma commitments or even worldly commitments. We tell a friend we're going to be there on Saturday to help them move. We should look carefully before we promise and then do our very best to keep that promise. So if on Saturday morning your aunt dies, you can call your friend and say, I'm really sorry, I can't come over and help you move because my aunt died. That's fine. But to wake up Saturday morning and go, oh, it's really sunny outside, I don't feel like helping my friend move. Anyway, that person's never done anything for me, and I'll be so relaxed going to the beach today. And then you call your friend up and go, oh, somebody in my family is sick, I'm very sorry, I can't help you. What are we doing to ourselves when we act like that? What are we doing to our own self-respect? When we don't follow through with what we say we're going to do, and then to boo when we make up excuses about it. What are we doing to our own self-respect? Yeah? And then we wonder why other people don't trust us. Well, why should they? Why should they? Because we're constantly saying this and doing that. So, there are situations where maybe you've committed to do something and afterwards you realize, boy, I didn't think well when I committed to do this. I said I was going to help organize this event and I didn't think of how full my schedule is. So in that situation, don't wait until the last minute and tell somebody. Call somebody up and say, and tell them the truth. Instead of, oh, well, I said I was going to do this, but now my kids are having problems, and on and on and on. Tell them the truth. I'm really sorry. I didn't think well when I made that commitment. And I'm seeing now that there's just too many things going on for me to fulfill that commitment. I'm very sorry. I hope you'll excuse me. Tell the truth to yourself and to the other person. I think we have much more integrity that way. Yeah? So, and I think our own integrity is very important. If we lose our integrity, what do we have for ourselves? We're really up the creek, aren't we? So, yeah. And so when all these different thoughts come in our mind, oh, I want to do this, oh, I want to do that, to be able to see this is just self-centered thought taking me away from, what I said I was going to do. And I said I was going to do this at a time when I was really thinking clearly and when I really meant what I said. Yeah? And so now this is just self-centered thought saying, basically, I'm too lazy to do what I said I was going to do because I don't feel like it. Yeah. Or because I'm so afraid that I'm just going to crumble because this thing is just so stressful that I'm just going to get so crazy that I'm going to die of a heart attack. I keep telling you the story of, my difficulties in Italy working with these macho Italian monks, and I wrote to Lama said, "Can I leave?" And he said, "We'll talk about it. I'll be there in 6 months." Yeah? That wasn't the answer I wanted to hear. But that was Lama's kindness. He taught me to stick in there and go through a difficult situation, even though I thought I was going completely crazy. Because it's all their fault I'm creating so much negative karma. Because they're making me angry. And it's their fault. Yeah, and anyway, they're saying all these horrible, mean things about me. You know. And it's just too stressful. And I'm so isolated. I'm the only American there with all these Italian men going... I gotta get out of here.
Or you had more in common with them than you know.
What do you say? That's not true. You just don't understand me. But this is how Lama taught me to develop strength. I had to, because I could have left without my teacher's permission. It's a free world. I could have done it. Ciao. Really? Ciao, ciao, ciao. I'm gone, fellas. But I figured that maybe my teacher knew something about me I didn't. And maybe I better, follow my teacher's advice. And maybe I better fulfill what I said I was going to do. Yeah. And those last 6 months were not peaches and cream. But boy, did I learn a lot. I learned so much. Yeah. And it really transformed my whole Dharma practice. And one of the big transformations that it made was that I realized my anger was my responsibility. And whenever I heard my teachers talking about anger after that, it really went in a totally different level. Because I wasn't thinking about their anger. I was thinking about my anger. Yeah? So, we have to build inner strength. If you want to follow the path, you have to build your own inner strength. And even, in this life, to have good relationships with other people, we have to build inner strength and not just say, well, forget this. I really can't do it. It's too much. If I try, I'm just going to collapse. Now, having said that, there are certain people that when they need to rest, don't. Okay. You'll know if you're one of those people if your friends come to you and say, you need to rest. Then you should listen. Or your teacher says, you need to rest. Then you should listen. But if nobody's coming to you and saying, it looks like you're going to totally fall apart because this situation is just too much, then you might consider that maybe it's your own mind. Yeah. That maybe it's your own mind. Yeah. And since our mind is a conditioned phenomena, that means it's dependent on causes and conditions. If we change the causes and conditions, what the mind is thinking, what the mind is feeling, also changes. So that thought is not glued in our mind for eternity. That emotion, is not there forever. So that's why I called the book Don't Believe Everything You Think. So we can get some space from, all these thoughts that just bombard us, that we believe, and make us an emotional yo-yo, and make us unable to, to have our word worth anything, because we're constantly saying this and doing something else, and then saying something else and doing something else, and, Okay, so I think purifying that comes in here too. Okay, before we go on to the next power, do we have questions, comments? Yeah.
I was thinking how skillful your teacher was to send you to that situation in the Italian monastery. And I thought, well, on the one hand, he is very skillful. On the other hand, it's samsara. These dissatisfactory situations are everywhere.
Yep. Yeah. Total dissatisfactory situations. I mean, I just wanted to stay in Nepal and be close to my teacher and close to the Sangha, and I got sent to Italy. And I arrived in Rome in the middle of winter with my plastic sandals. That's how prepared I was. But really my teacher was, and I wasn't ordained very long at that time at all. And I was sent out to do have this huge responsibility in a Dharma center. But, it was very skillful of him. Yeah.
I was thinking that the other thing that you get from not following through is a lack of joy, because one of the causes of people who have joy suffer is that they've followed through on things.
Yeah.
That's why we try to complete tasks.
Yeah.
And so I think I hadn't thought about that before, how the mind that's discouraged versus the mind that's joyful. The discouragement is the laziness. The joy suffers like the reverse of that. So
Yeah.
creating the causes for less joy in the future.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That when we follow the discouraging thoughts, we're creating the cause for less joy. We're also creating the cause, to never be able to complete things. Yeah. So, and then that comes up in the next life. And then in our next life, we wonder why we can't follow through with anything. We have this constant disruption. It's because we created that kind of cause. But you're right, if the mind is joyful, then we can do so many things. So then the thing is, how do I make my mind joyful, even in a difficult situation? Yeah, because there is no shortage of difficult situations. And wherever we go in this world, there's going to be difficult situations, and there's going to be difficult people, and there's going to be problems. So how do I keep my mind joyful in these situations? Yeah. So this is the thing, How do I, and if you look at it from an NVC way, it means how do I give myself some empathy? If you look at it from a Dharma way, it's how do I let go of all these unrealistic thoughts that drag me down? And how do I instead, take the time and really replace them with other thoughts that bring me much happiness? How do I familiarize myself long enough with certain thoughts so that when my mind does go down, when I think those certain thoughts or remember those things, then I feel calmed and back on track. For me, doing the Lama Choka Puja, the Guru Puja, because I do it every day, that is something that really helps me, because here I am visualizing the whole tree of assembled merits. Well, these are the people who are really my friends. These are the people I can really count on. So, if I'm angry, if I'm upset, if I'm disappointed or whatever, okay, leave that aside. Here I am with, the lineage and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and I can relax and be joyful here. And I can bow and I can make offerings, and it gives me a lot of pleasure to do that. You know, it gives me pleasure to confess and to rejoice and to make requests to that. So, you know, I find if I do that and really concentrate when I'm doing that practice, then whatever was happening between me and sentient beings is long gone by the end of the practice. You got something?
I had a question kind of about, yesterday you were talking about relating to Vajrasattva like he's a good friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to try that because I thought that would be really helpful. But then when I realized that the way that I relate to my friends is not very helpful.
Vajrasattva, you want to smoke a joint with me?
But what I started doing was I started this kind of, I don't know, like almost like a guilt trip. I was like, gosh. I said, hey, dude, I'm so I don't know, I was getting caught up with this feeling like I'm so bad, or, you know, like that's sort of how the conversation went. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering how I could turn that to, because I realized that that's maybe how I would speak to some of my friends, like, oh, I did something really sucky, or, you know, like this kind of thing. I don't know, I wasn't sure that it didn't feel quite wholesome or helpful.
Yeah. Okay, so Vajrasattva is your best friend, and then you go to Vajrasattva and complain about yourself.
Right.
I mean, and that's interesting that you said it made you realize that maybe that's how I'm relating to my friends too.
Yeah.
So that's a big wake-up call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But then, how, you know, your relationship with Vajrasattva. If you're feeling not so good about things you've done, then you say to Vajrasattva, I don't feel so good about this and this. Can you help me see clearly? Yeah? Can you help me not to guilt trip myself, but to really look at this clearly and find a Dharma solution to transform my mind? Yeah. So you say that to Vajrasattva. Then, you know, Vajrasattva's going to talk back to you. So you have to then remember, well, what teachings have I heard? Because what Vajrasattva is going to give you is some kind of teaching. So then you have to remember the teachings you've heard that could possibly fit this situation and tell them to yourself. And then practice them.
That's very helpful, Jack, because I think Venerables always describe that our friends are the people that we kvetch with. We complain to them about us and about others. And so I find that my Dharma friends here at the community, when first of all, I have to get used to not going there and complaining about somebody, saying, I need some help working on, I'm really ticked off right now and I need some help with my mind. And then to be open to the fact that they're going to give me some advice. And it's going to be something that my self-centered thought is not going to like. So for me to talk to Vajrasattva, I have to change, like Jack's saying, my whole paradigm of what a true, good friend is. Mm-hmm. And it's not someone who feeds me into my blaming and my afflictions, but it's somebody who's really going to be authentic with me and is really going to help me and is going to totally give the self-centered thought the boot. You know, but I can see myself in the community here. When I'm ticked off, I want somebody to side with me. I want someone to acknowledge that my anger is justified, my resentments, my jealousy, my depression. And I have to say that Venerable Jigme has been probably one of my closest Dharma friends for the past few years, because she's been really showing me that doesn't work, especially when I'm like really coming down on myself, on my poor quality. She said, Venerable Semke, you're not like that at all anymore. Do you know that? Or you don't do that anymore. Do you realize that? Because I have this old habit of thinking the way I used to think, even though my actions and my attitudes have changed. So she has really been helping me over the years to just call me on my old patterns of how I talk to myself and how I talk about other people. And she just says, that's not true. And sometimes I go, I want to hear that. I want to hear that I'm a self-pitying, self-hating, jealous, depressed person. So it's been really quite a powerful experience to have to understand what a real friend is. That's really been the thing I've learned here.
I thought, when you said that, I was thinking about how when I went to art school for the first time, and I started being around other artists who were like way better, artwork than me. And at first, we have these critiques, and we're all making a lot of different artwork. And at first, you're kind of around the people, and they're like, "That's so good. You're such a good artist," like this kind of thing. And it's kind of like, okay, all right, I have some confidence or something. But eventually, by the time that I was a junior and a senior, I didn't want those people to be around me. My friends were the people who tell me, like, Jack, you really need to work on that again. and in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, I spent 6 hours in the sculpture studio working on this, and you're telling me it looks like crap. And I'm like, yeah. But those are the people who helped me the most,
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's the way I feel when I write, and then people read it and they come back and go, you need to put this in and you need to take that out and this needs to go here and that, and the whole thing needs to be rewritten. And it wasn't just, I wish it was 6 hours for like 6 months or 6 years. It's the same thing. But then that's how you really grow.
Right.
And I know that's how my writing has improved.
And that's how you trust people. Like, I really trust those people who tell me. Especially when afterwards, when they say, like, oh, this looks okay. And I know that they're the ones who would tell me if it didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, so let's, we have a few minutes for silent meditation. Let's do that, and then we'll do the power of the remedial action this afternoon.